The human body has 2 ears and 1 mouth. To be good at persuading or selling, you must find out how to use those natural devices in proportion. Listen twice as much as you talk, and you'll succeed in persuading others nearly every time. When you do most of the talking, you aren't finding out about either your customer or your customer's needs. You aren't hearing buying clues or concerns. You may be raising concerns the prospect may not have had in the first place. You're shifting your prospect's attention from your offering. You're giving your prospect more opportunity to disagree with you, to distrust one of your statements, or both. You're taking center stage away from the customer. You aren't able to think ahead. You aren't able to guide the conversation. You aren't able to convince the other person of the best decision for him. Most people don't think they talk too much, but if you had listened to as many sales presentations as I have over 25 years of teaching, selling, and sales management, you would have developed a keen ear for how much talking is done compared to how much is needed. And the answer, all too often, is too much. To develop your ear, try these 2 simple exercises. First, listen to a salesperson selling others or trying to sell you. Pay attention to what his words are doing. While you're listening, ask yourself these questions. Do his words paint positive or negative mental pictures? Do his words say anything that may raise a new objection to his product or service? Are all his words necessary? Does he ask questions and then carefully listen to the prospect's answers? Does he move forward with questions, or does he get off course by talking about features and benefits the customer has not expressed a need for? Another great exercise is for you to record yourself when you're talking with a customer. You may be shocked at how much chatter you can cut out. To detect what you need to cut, ask yourself these questions. What is the quality of the questions I ask? Am I asking information-gathering questions to help myself move forward with my sale, or am I just asking questions to fill a sound void? Questions don't mean much unless the answers are helping you get the information you need to help you serve your customer better and keep the sale moving forward. Watch and listen to others and to yourself more carefully than you're used to listening in everyday conversation. Acquaint yourself with what good listening really sounds like. It should sound like the voice of others, not your own voice. As you discover more and more about selling well, the phrase putting your foot in your mouth will gain new meaning for you. After all, you can't put your foot in your mouth if it's closed. So close it and listen more. Product knowledge is one whole side of the selling triangle I discussed earlier in this audiobook, which tells you that it's 1/3 of what you need to know to be successful. By investing time in product research up front, it'll pay off when you're ready to put your selling strategies to work. How can you be sure you're armed with the product knowledge you need before you head out to make a sale? Take advantage of as many different resources as you can. If your company offers training sessions on the product, attend. If they hand out brochures and pamphlets, know them backward and forward. Talk with your customers about the product so you know what questions they have, and discuss the product with your fellow salespeople to get suggestions. And be sure to know your competition's product so you can tell your customers how your product measures up. Veteran and top salespeople have all kinds of information about products that they may never document. Talk with them as much as you can in order to put their knowledge to work for you. Keep your meetings with other salespeople focused on product knowledge and information. Otherwise, your time will not be well spent. When 2 or more salespeople get together, it's easy to get off the subject at hand and descend into old war stories or other unrelated matters. If you want product knowledge, focus the conversation there. Now is not the time for gossip. Ask your sales manager for permission to do a ride-along with a top salesperson in your territory. You'll almost always get a thumbs up because the request shows your manager that you're sincere in wanting to become the best salesperson you can be. Watch how the salesperson handles everything: herself, the client, brochures, proposals, visual aids, and the product itself. Listen to the word pictures she uses in describing it. Notice the mood she sets. Remember, the how of handling products and information is as important as the what and why. Have the veterans provide you with their research website addresses. If they're as good as you think, they'll have a tremendous database of where they get their latest and best information about your product, and that of the competition. When you're in a learning mode, you need to set the stage for learning. That may mean gathering pen and paper, brochures, and a demo piece of equipment, and locking yourself in the company conference room to study. It may mean setting appointments and interviewing with a training director, company owner, or top salesperson. It may involve watching hours of product training videos or attending classes on the products. It may involve interviewing current customers. It doesn't matter what the type of education is, you must begin every session with a clear respect for what's to come. Treat the sessions like gold. Show up on time, if not early. Have plenty of paper for note-taking. Bring a couple of pens in different colors to highlight the most important information. And be courteous to those who are sharing their knowledge with you. What they are imparting will make you money. Treat them and their messages with the utmost respect. The better you treat the people who are helping you, the more they'll relax. You'll be making them like you and trust you, which will lead them to offer you even more valuable information. Sounds a lot like selling, doesn't it? Whatever type of product you sell, try to create an opportunity to tour the facility where your product is designed and built. Better yet, try to visit with the originator of the idea. Find out what she was thinking when it all came together. You can't know too much about your product or service. Customers love to feel that you have the inside track on the latest and greatest products and services. They want to believe that you are the most competent person in your industry. Face it, no one wants to be represented by a dud. Most companies designate a person or department to gather information on the competition and to prepare analyses of that information for the sales staff. If your company has this situation under control, sing their praises and encourage them to keep up the good work, because such research can be a voraciously time-consuming feat. If your company doesn't provide this service, you need to take it on yourself. Take advantage at least once a week of online searches that will seek out any information for you that includes the keywords you give it, such as your competitor's company name, product name, and so on. This information should include the competition's latest news releases as well as products. Good things to know, especially if the competition is in trouble with the government or involved in a lawsuit based on one of its products, for example. Don't rely on just one source for information. If you're in business on your own, you may want to enlist a family member to find juicy tidbits of information on competitors' products for you. Because you're the one who's out there every day slogging in the trenches, facing off against the competition, you need to keep your eyes and ears open for any information available too. If you call on customers who've had past experiences with your competitors, ask them if they would mind sharing their thoughts on the product and service with you. Ask what they liked about the product, particular features and benefits. How were their contacts with customer service handled? What would they like to see improved upon? Asking in a sincere, caring manner will send the message that you want to do better, be better, and help them have a better experience than ever before. When they tell their tales, take good notes and keep them handy for future reference. If a new customer has just switched from the competition to your product, find out exactly what the deciding factor was and work it into any presentations you make in the future where circumstances are similar. Also, be certain that feature has remained in the product if they're thinking about making an upgrade. Product information doesn't just come from the technical booklet that comes with the product. It's everywhere the product has been. In seeking out as much information as possible, you will earn and keep your expert status, and more people will want to take your advice. When you're just getting started, your time should be split between finding out about your product, honing your skills, and finding people who need that product. The key to success in a people business like selling lies in how many people you can see in the time you have. Initially, you'll probably find yourself working very hard just to find a few prospects. But with every experience, you'll discover a little more, refine your strategies and techniques, and eventually find yourself working smarter. If you're asking yourself, with all this prospecting, am I a miner or a salesperson? Keep in mind that the two jobs share many similarities. In each, you stake a claim. You bring with you the necessary tools to help dig out your own little niche of success. You have high expectations of success. You persistently and consistently work toward your goals. You have a firm belief in your ability to achieve those goals. And finally, you refuse to let others' negative reactions to your work inhibit your behavior and beliefs. When you're finally prepared enough with knowledge about your product, service, or concept, and when you feel comfortable with your selling skills, you need to begin finding people to sell to. Because you won't have a lot of qualifying, presenting, closing, or follow-up to do when you're new, your primary focus should be on prospecting. In fact, in the beginning, your daily plan should be to invest about 75% of your time prospecting. The other 25% of your time should go toward developing your product knowledge and presentation skills. Many successful sales veterans will tell you how important prospecting is, even after they have built a large customer base. Successful sales professionals, those with a strong desire not only to reach the top but to stay there, make prospecting a part of their everyday selling strategy. They understand that achieving success doesn't mean they can stop looking for new business opportunities. Successful sales professionals explore every avenue in search of new customers, no matter how long they've been in the business. The best place to start prospecting is with people who already have paid money for products and services similar to yours. If you're selling exercise equipment, begin with people who jog, belong to health clubs, or join local recreational sports teams. Why? Because you know they're already health conscious. The convenience of being able to exercise at home may be just what they're looking for. If you're selling graphic design, start with the people responsible for advertising in local companies. If you've already worked for people in a certain type of business, such as gift shops, you may want to concentrate on other gift shops in the area. The items in your portfolio will then be very appropriate displays of your work. To some degree, at least, where you'll find your prospects depends on what you represent. If you sell products or services for a company, you probably found out during your product knowledge training where the likeliest places are to find your products or services in use. If you didn't, be sure to ask. Those places are obviously the best places to begin prospecting. After you have some sales under your belt, you'll have time to get more creative with staking out other claims. If you're on your own, as opposed to representing a company, start with your local chamber of commerce or your local library. Both have useful listings of local businesses, national business directories, and international directories. Conduct online searches for businesses of the type that would use your product or service. For example, you may search for all manufacturers of computer software if your product applies to that field. All you need to do to narrow down your list of potential prospects to the right ones to begin contacting is ask the right questions. If you have some money to invest in lists, you may want to contact a list broker, which is someone who has all sorts of lists available and can review your particular demographic needs with you to provide you the best list of potential customers to contact. If you prefer to market via email, a very economical method, ask your list broker if he has opt-in email lists, which are lists of people who have agreed to have information about certain things they're interested in sent to them via email. Opt-in email lists receive a response rate ranging from 5 to 15%, a huge increase over traditional direct mail response rates. And using opt-in email lists can help you avoid emailing unwanted information to people and making a negative impression. Making no impression at all is better than leaving a negative one. Check out www.postmasterdirect.com to find out more about how you can benefit from email promotions. The simplest place to start prospecting is with the people you already know. Talking with these people first will help you find easy leads and give you an opportunity to practice your prospecting presentation with people who are less likely to give you a dose of rejection than complete strangers are. When you're new in the world of selling, honing your selling skills may help to draw you out of your comfort zone. So prospecting among those people with whom you're most comfortable, your friends and relatives, can take away a little of the stress of this thing called selling. I refer to a salesperson's friends and family as her warm or natural market. Friends and relatives are less likely to reject you, which means you're less likely to fail, and rejection and failure are the two biggest fears among those who are trying anything new. Your friends and family like you, they trust you, and they want to see you succeed. That means they're almost always willing to help. Besides, if you truly believe in the goodness of what you're doing, and these people are candidates for your product or service, why would you want to deprive the people you care about the most of the chance to benefit from what you're selling? If you truly care about them, they'll respond in kind, and possibly become some of your best clients. Be selective when you prospect among your family and friends, though. If you're selling exercise equipment, don't get discouraged if 90-year-old Aunt Minnie doesn't buy 2 of everything. Start by contacting your friends and family and telling them that you're in a new business, or you're starting a new career, and that you want to share the news with them. Unless you've started a new job every 6 months for the past several years, they'll be happy for you and will naturally want to know more. This interested audience gives you the perfect opportunity to test your presentation skills. A key phrase to use in getting your friends' permission to share with them your new product, service, or idea is this: "Because I value your judgment, I was hoping you'd give me your opinion." This statement is bound to make them feel important and willing to help you, if they weren't already. After you've contacted all your family members and close friends, move on to acquaintances. Consider talking with your child's baseball coach, other parents, your accountant, and the checkout person you always see at the grocery store. If approached properly, most people are more than willing to give you advice or opinions. Ask the right question, and they can advise you right into a great connection with a big client. If your friends and relatives aren't good candidates for your offering, contact them anyway. The first rule in prospecting is never to assume that someone can't help you build your business. They may not be prospects themselves, but they may know others who are. Don't ever be afraid to ask for a referral. There's gold in them thar hills. Unless you represent a unique product or service, the opportunities you have for making contact with prospective clients are practically unlimited. You simply need to test a variety of methods to narrow down those that bring you the best people. If what you sell is good for businesses, begin with your local yellow pages. Businesses invest their money in listings because they're serious about being in business. Their listings also should tell you that they're serious about staying in business. If your product or service can bring a business even more business, or make that business more efficient, you owe it to them to contact them. And if you want to broaden your field of prospects, check out a toll-free directory. You'll find one online at www.inter800.com. Businesses are listed by company, number, and type of industry, regardless of long-distance carrier. AT&T Anywho directory, www.anywho.com/tf.html, allows you to do reverse lookups when you have the phone number but don't know where the company is located. And you can get company email addresses on Anywho as well. For the same information about Canadian companies, check out canadatollfree.simpatico.ca/search. If you're not online, your local library will likely have an internet connection that you can use, or they may even have a toll-free directory in their reference section. Your local library is a wealth of free information. Use it. Be sure to put the internet to work for you when it comes to prospecting. Post bulletins on message boards related to your product or service. Provide valuable information in addition to selling your product or service. Here are some of the most effective methods I've used to find those people who are the best candidates for what you have to offer. When you apply yourself to finding these people, and if you continue to do so on a regularly scheduled basis, you'll be off and running on a successful selling career. You already know a horde of people who may be potential prospects for your product, service, or idea. Think beyond your closest circle of friends and relatives. Besides, you probably tapped them out during your first 2 weeks of selling anyway. If you're like most people, you shop every week at grocery stores, hardware stores, discount stores, at shopping malls, and so on. And unless you live in the middle of nowhere, you have neighbors. You may go to church or school functions on a regular basis. You may have a spouse who works or who is involved in other activities through hobbies. And chances are good that several people in this wider circle of acquaintances may be able to benefit from your product or service in some way, or they may know others who do. In prospecting with the people you come into contact with on a daily basis, your job is simply to communicate. Letting others know what you do opens many doors of opportunity for you. All you need to do is start a conversation. One of the greatest prospecting tools around can be delivered to your doorstep for under $1 a day in most areas. It has an intimidating, ultra-technical name. It's called a newspaper. These days, you don't even have to walk out your door to receive it, because many newspapers are also available online. I used to read my printed version with a felt-tip marker so I could circle all the opportunities I found. But today, you can cut and paste the most pertinent information into a single document and print it out. Unless you do business internationally, you'll probably want to stick to the local news, business, and announcement sections. Stay away from the latest crime statistics and headline-making stories unless that's your field of interest. For most people, the most beneficial portion of the paper is written about John and Jane Q. Public. John and Jane are the people who get promoted in business. They have babies. They buy or sell homes. They start up new businesses. Do you get my drift here? If John Q. Public has been promoted, what else usually comes along with that promotion? A raise in pay. And what do most people do with their raises? Invest in stocks and mutual funds? Some do. But most buy new cars, bigger houses, nicer clothing, and season tickets to entertainment events, and buy the products and services you sell. Knowing how to read your newspaper for leads only takes a few days of practice. When you get started, you'll be amazed at the number of leads you used to glance over. Here's just a brief list of some of the things people need and want when they go through life changes, all of which you can find in your local newspaper. People having babies need more insurance, bigger homes, minivans, delivery services, and diapers. Families who are moving into new homes need garage door openers, security systems, ceiling fans, homeowners insurance, landscaping, and aspirin. Lots of aspirin. New or expanding businesses need equipment, personnel, and supplies. In virtually every situation in which you can use selling skills, if you don't get face-to-face with the right person, all your hard work developing your selling skills goes for naught. In telephone sales, being able to speak with someone directly counts the same. If you aren't live and present to your clients, you'll never be able to discover their needs in order to figure out how you can satisfy them. So, how do you get directly involved with the people you want to persuade? In order to get face-to-face with people, you first must sell them on scheduling an appointment with you, or at the very least, agreeing to allow you to pop by and visit. And you must schedule an appointment before you can ever persuade your prospect to own your product, start using your service, or consider your idea. Of course, to begin with, you have to find the right people to contact, and you do this by prospecting. But you also have to be firmly convinced that what you have is right for the people you're selling to. If you're not convinced of that, you won't deliver your presentation with enough conviction to persuade them to give you the time of day, let alone consider your product or service. Your first line of approach when you're contacting a prospective client may differ depending on how you received the person's contact information. If the prospective client contacted you by telephone, returning the call is always the most courteous response. If you got the person's name from a referral, another client or business associate recommended you call him, ask the person doing the referring to introduce you to the new prospect. Or, at the very least, call the prospect and let him know that you'll be contacting him. Then you need to decide whether an introductory letter or phone call would be best, and this will most likely depend on the formality of the situation. If you're selling luxury yachts, dropping a note first may be wise, as opposed to interrupting the prospect's life with a sales phone call. If the person left his name and email address on your website, he would probably prefer to be contacted first by email. Many websites ask in their visitor registration area how the client would prefer to be contacted. If your website doesn't already ask this question, start doing so. It's a simple yet powerful courtesy that can open the door to further business if you use it right. Your goal when you contact a prospective client, whether by phone, mail, or email, is to get in direct, live contact with him, so you must approach the sale of the appointment very carefully. You first have to sell the prospect on the fact that he'd be better off speaking with you than not speaking with you, and that means you must offer benefits to him in your very first contact. Keep in mind these tips when you're trying to get an appointment or secure an opportunity to pop by and visit. Always be courteous. Say please and thank you. Refer to the person as Mr. or Ms. last name. Don't be too quick to use their first names. Do anything to meet the prospect, even if you have to drive miles out of your way to be where they are and all you get is an introduction. Those miles can turn into smiles when you later close the sale. Hit the high notes early. That means you must pique their interest right away. Tell them about a benefit that they would be likely to enjoy. Saving money, making money, and improving lifestyles are big ones for most people. Confirm all the details about where and when you'll meet. Verbal confirmation is a must. Written confirmation is even better. You can include in your confirmation note that you'll invest plenty of time in researching just the right information for the meeting to make it worth his while. These instructions may seem too simplified at first glance, but many a novice salesperson has gotten so excited about getting an appointment that he's let his etiquette slip and said, "Hell yes, I'll be there." And although a little swear word among friends may be acceptable, it's something you should avoid at all costs when you're dealing with clients. Or he's given up too easily when a customer was tough to meet with, losing the chance to meet face to face. Or he's failed to reconfirm details about when and where to meet, and not knowing for sure when the appointment was, lost what was potentially a big opportunity. If you do your best to be courteous, secure an appointment no matter how busy the prospect is, and confirm the details of when you will meet, you're well on your way to a great appointment. The important thing to keep in mind when you've come up with a list of prospective clients is that not all of those clients will need your product or service. You may have to contact 20 people to find one who wants just what you have to offer. But every one of those other 19 calls brings you one call closer to the right person. So you just need to stay focused on your ultimate goal. Don't let a little bit of rejection send you scurrying to the nearest hidey hole. So, what do you do when you're ready to approach those prospects? What strategies work best? You go through 7 steps in that introductory phone call, all of which I cover next. 1. Offer a greeting. 2. Introduce yourself and your business. 3. Express your gratitude for the person's willingness to talk with you. 4. Tell the person the purpose of your call. 5. Get an appointment to talk with the person face to face. 6. Thank the person while you're on the phone. 7. Write a thank you note and send it either by regular mail or email. The rest, as they say, is selling. When you're about to contact your prospective clients, keep 3 things at the forefront of your mind: your belief in what you're offering, the happiness of your current clients, and your desire to serve others. This advice remains the same whether you're selling yourself as an employee, your skills as a freelance writer, or a $1 million computer system as a career sales representative for a Fortune 500 company. Step number 1. The greeting. When you call a prospective client for the first time, begin by using the most important thing for anyone to hear: her name. Using a formal approach such as, "Good morning, Ms. James," or "Good morning, I'm calling for Ms. James," is best because it conveys respect. But be sure to check your watch before you call and take into account time zone differences. You don't want to look like a complete boob by saying good morning when it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I recommend the use of good morning, good afternoon, or good evening because it sounds more professional than just saying hello. This phrasing distinguishes you from all those other people who call your prospective client, and this time, the difference definitely favors you. Too often, people are tempted to use a person's first name over the phone. The use of the familiar Bob or Judy doesn't bother some people, especially those whose names are Bob or Judy, but it does bother others. So don't risk being too familiar with Mr. Robert Smith, whose mother and friends always call him Robert, by souring the conversation at its beginning by calling him Bob. Wait for Mr. Robert Smith to say, "Call me Bob, why don't you?" Common courtesy goes a long, long way in making initial contacts. If you aren't confident in your skill level in this area, attend one of the many classes offered on business etiquette. I don't know of many situations in which you can be too polite, except maybe at wrestling matches. Step number 2. The introduction. After offering your greeting, introduce yourself and give your company name. If your company name doesn't explain what you do, as it would if your name were, say, Jensen Portrait Studios, then you must also mention briefly what type of business you're in. The key word here is briefly. I once asked a salesman what he sold, and I got 45 minutes on the features and benefits of owning my very own magnetic resonance imaging scanner. Gadzooks! To keep your prospect on the line and awake, you may not want to say that you're in carpet cleaning, for example. Instead, describe your business in terms of benefits to the prospect. For example, you may say, "We're a local business that helps companies like yours enhance their image with customers and reduce employee sick time." Clean carpets give a good impression. Dirty carpets harbor germs. Is Ms. James ready to hang up? Probably not yet. Your description is creating all kinds of pictures in her mind because you haven't been so specific as to mention carpet cleaning. Your business could be anything from sneeze guards to high-tech air cleaning systems. Because she probably doesn't have that clear a picture yet of what you're selling, she's probably curious to know more. After all, no one likes to end a conversation with all the blanks not yet filled in. Paint a tantalizing picture with the words you use, but keep it simple. If you hear snoring on the other end of the line, you've gone on too long. Keep in mind that this all happens in a matter of seconds. You're trying to get Ms. James to give you anything with which you can extend the conversation. Step number 3. Gratitude. After you've introduced yourself and your business, you need to acknowledge that your prospect's time is valuable and thank her for taking your call. This lets her know you consider her to be an important person. Say something like this: "I appreciate your giving me a moment of your valuable time this morning. I promise to be brief." Or you may want to try this: "Thank you for talking with me. I'll only be a moment and then let you get back to the important work you do." It doesn't matter if she was just walking into the room with nothing in particular planned for the moment. Acting as if you've just called her when she's gotten out of a meeting with the president never hurts the impression you make. You don't need to gush at your prospects with gratitude, though. Just be professional and businesslike in your manner. Step number 4. The purpose. When you've expressed your gratitude for your prospect's time, you need to get right to the heart of the matter by letting her know why you're calling. You should always express your purpose with a question. Something like this may be appropriate. If I can show you how to reduce employee sick time while improving the image your company presents to its customers, would you be interested? If she says yes, ask permission to ask her a few brief questions. When you have her permission, go ahead with your questions. If she says no, be prepared with one more question that may pique her interest, such as, "Do you believe an improvement in the image of your business would have the effect of increasing sales?" If she still says no, you may want to be more direct and ask, "When was the last time you had the carpets in your facility steam cleaned to eliminate germs and improve your store's appearance to your clients?" If she says it's only been a week, you may just need to remain polite and ask for permission to contact her when she needs the service again. Thank her for her time. Put a note in your calendar to contact her a couple of weeks before she needs the carpets cleaned again, and move on to your next potential client call. Many of my students have benefited from a strategy that I call the survey approach. In it, when you get to this phase of the phone call, you say, "The company I represent has given me an assignment to conduct a quick 2-question survey of just 10 people. You're the 6th person I've contacted. We would greatly value your opinion. Would you help me by answering these 2 brief questions?" When you ask for the prospect's help and show that you value her opinion, she's likely to comply. After all, who among us doesn't have an opinion? Plus, by informing her that your company is having you do this, you're likely to gain her empathy and cooperation. The purpose of conducting this brief survey is to get the person on the other end of the line talking. Hopefully, what she tells you will give you the information you need to build her curiosity enough to commit to that vital face-to-face visit. Be careful not to just go from one question to the next without really listening to your prospect's answers. She'll know by how you phrase the next question whether her last answer was heard. If she thinks you're just waiting to pounce on her with a canned list of questions, rather than sincerely trying to get valuable information, she'll quickly hang up and send you off into the dial tone void. So how can you show that you're really listening to what your prospect is saying? Paraphrase her responses before moving on to the next question. When she hears that you cared enough to listen, she'll be more inclined to continue, and you escape your instant journey into the vortex. Step number 5. The appointment. If, after sharing with your prospect the purpose of your call and asking the questions you've prepared, Ms. James seems inclined to set a time for a visit, be prepared to tell her just how long you'll need. I recommend that you keep your initial contact as short as possible. Most people will balk at giving you an hour or even 30 minutes of their time. 20 minutes or less seems to be an acceptable time commitment for most people. When Ms. James agrees to give you the 20 minutes you need, give her an option of when to meet, with an alternate advance question such as this. Would tomorrow at 10:20 a.m. be good for you, or is Wednesday at 2:40 p.m. better? This question lets your prospect choose, yet keeps you in control. What's she doing if she chooses either option you've given her? Committing to the appointment, which is exactly what you want. Notice that my example mentions off times, as opposed to 10 a.m. or 2 p.m., for example. Using off times differentiates you from all the other salespeople who call. It also shows that you must know the importance of punctuality if you can keep a schedule using those times. If your visit will last only 20 minutes, it also lets your prospect schedule other appointments around you in the more standard time slots. Remember, it all comes down to courtesy. Step number 6. The over-the-phone thank you. When you've secured an appointment, you move on to thanking your prospect again, reiterating the time that has been agreed to and verifying the location of her office or the place where you'll be meeting. Nothing is worse than showing up late and presenting the excuse of getting lost. If the location is difficult to get to, now is the time to ask for explicit directions. If this is the big sale you've dreamed about for years and you finally have the appointment, drive to the office the day before and get familiar with the area. Know at least one alternate route in case traffic presents a problem or a road crew decides that's the day to repair potholes. If an appointment is important enough, schedule at least the earlier part of that day in the prospect's part of town so that you're already in the area when the time for the appointment arrives. You never ever want to take a chance that you'll be late for a first appointment because you don't know where you're going or because of circumstances beyond your control. Step number 7. The written thank you. If your appointment is more than 2 days from when you call, immediately send your prospect a thank you note, either by regular mail or email, confirming the details of when you spoke and what was agreed to. A professional-looking piece of correspondence can solidify any doubts she may have about this commitment. Keep in mind that if your prospect has given you a home email address, as opposed to a work one, she may not check that email account on a daily basis, which means it may not be the best method of reaching her. In most business situations, however, people communicate primarily by email, so the recipient will likely see your message right away. Including your picture on your letterhead or on your business card, and then enclosing that with your thank you note never hurts. Get a professional portrait taken if you choose to use a photo. Sending something that looks like your driver's license headshot is bad news. Knowing what you look like increases the prospect's comfort level when she meets you. An excellent program at Well Connected, www.wellconn.com, allows you to generate thank you notes via the internet that are then mailed to your potential client and include both your photo and a high-quality gift that can be imprinted with the client's name. It makes a wonderful professional impression. Your prospective clients make many decisions about you in the first 10 seconds after they meet you for the very first time. That's right. Within 10 seconds, you're either chopped liver or Prince or Princess Charming. Take a stopwatch or check the second hand on your watch right now and find out what 10 seconds feels like. When you're watching your clock, it seems like a long time, but when you're walking into a room and meeting someone for the first time, it passes by in an instant. Your job is to come up with a way to help the people who meet you for the first time see that they made a good choice in agreeing to see you. Your clients must immediately see some benefit from investing their time with you. Knowing how to maximize those first 10 seconds allows you to make the impression you really want to make so that you can comfortably move forward in your selling. If you're new to the sales profession, Be careful not to cram everything you know, or think you know, into the first 10 seconds. Instead, that time needs to be natural and comfortable. That way, you'll help your prospective client to relax, which always makes a good impression. Before you arrive for your appointment or visit with a potential client, consider the way you dress. Your goal is to ensure that your prospects like you and see that you're like them. So, how should you dress to accomplish this? Dress like your clients dress, or even better, dress like the people they turn to for business advice. Make good eye contact with the people you meet. Don't stare them down or eye them as if you're assessing their clothing. Smile warmly with your mouth and your eyes. Keep your tone of voice confident. When you rehearse, if your voice sounds shaky, keep rehearsing until you've got it down. If you're truly nervous when meeting new people, take a few slow, deep breaths to calm yourself before entering the room. If you're sincere about your pleasure in meeting people, this behavior will be automatic. Qualifying is where you determine whether you can help your prospective client. Now you figure out not only whether your prospect needs what you're offering, but also whether your prospect has the power to make the decision to buy. Both of these factors must be present in order for you to consider this person a qualified buyer. If they're not, you will need to politely withdraw and move on to another potential client. If you pursue presenting and trying to close an unqualified buyer, all you're doing is wasting his time, getting in a little practice with your presentation, and allowing your confidence to take a hit. That type of situation is part of what has given sales a bad name in the past. Don't go there. So, how do you get started in qualifying your prospects? You need to ask the right questions. In some cases, you wait and watch for the perfect opportunity to ask. Other times, you have to create the opportunity to ask. Think of yourself as a detective, a gatherer of information to solve the mystery of your prospect's buying needs. If all you had to do was come up with a couple of questions that would always be answered completely and honestly, your life would be simple. But it isn't always that easy. Discovering your prospect's needs and concerns, and then incorporating such information into the opening of your presentation takes a lot of time and practice before you ever walk through the doors of each appointment. I can think of one person, a real character actually, who exemplifies what effective qualification is all about. In the 1970s, this character was quite popular on network television, and he even resurfaced in the 1990s. See if you can tell who it is by this description. He drives a battered old car. He walks with a slight limp and has a bad eye. He has poor posture and a 5 o'clock shadow most of the day. His trench coat is always wrinkled and his tie askew. He carries a cigar and a small spiral notebook. If you watch any television at all, by now you've probably guessed that I'm not talking about Lassie. It's Columbo, of course. I love using the example of Lieutenant Columbo when I cover qualifying tactics and strategies, because Columbo does a wonderful job of adjusting his questioning techniques to fit every situation. He also acts as if the person he's questioning is better, more important, or smarter than he is. Columbo's demeanor throws his prospects off guard, and they often drop their defenses. Their lapses allow him to ask the same question in several different ways. If they come up with a different answer to the rephrased question, he knows that they're not telling the truth or that they know more than they're letting on. Such information is valuable for him in continuing to seek out answers. Now, I want to highlight some of the key strategies Columbo uses to solve every case, and they're strategies you can put to work when you're trying to get information from your prospects. Keep out of the limelight. Columbo never presumes to be the top dog or the smartest person in the world. He doesn't enter with a flourish like Sherlock Holmes might. Instead, he lets the selling situation or the product be the star, explaining it in great detail to the suspects. Your prospect believes you know more about the subject than he does, or he wouldn't invest his time with you. The prospect needs to share certain information about himself in order for you to know what to share with him. Your goal in qualifying, then, is to involve the prospect in an educational experience where he learns through the use of questions. Each of your questions builds on his answers to the previous ones. Taking notes is vital. But Columbo doesn't rush to get every word of vital information. Instead, he seems to jot things down casually. His notepad isn't large and threatening. It's small enough to fit in his pocket, and rather nondescript. And he refers back to this information again and again during his investigation. The information he turns up helps direct his future efforts with each suspect, which in selling is called the prospect, or more optimistically, the future client. Take a look at the device you use to take notes. Is it imposing? Does it have 100 blanks that your prospect will feel you must fill in with information about him? If so, it's likely to be somewhat threatening. When you state a fact back to the prospect, glance or point to where you have it in your notes. This shows that you have the correct information and that you're on top of the details. Make the people you're questioning feel important. Ever the humble searcher of truth, Columbo always reminds his suspects how accommodating they are to let him impose on their busy schedules. He thanks them profusely for their time and the vital information they provide. No matter how small the tidbit of information, he makes them feel as if it's the single most important key to solving the case. Don't just jot down the notes. Make comments on the facts and figures the people provide you with. Compliment them on being on top of things enough to know these details without looking them up. If they did look up some of the figures, compliment them on their dedication to accuracy by not calling out numbers from memory. Ask standard and innocent questions. Columbo rarely comes out and asks a suspect, "Did you do it?" Instead, he asks what sounds like typical police-type questions about times, people, and places in order to gather background information and disarm the suspect. In sales, sooner or later, you need to talk about money. Money is an uncomfortable subject for many people, so you don't just ask, "How much have you got?" Instead, you're more discreet. "Mike, if we were fortunate to find just the right widget for you today, how much did you plan to invest to own one?" Listen to both verbal and nonverbal responses. Columbo notices how people tell him what they have to say, not just noting the words they use, but paying attention to their body language as well. He knows and evaluates not only their postures, but also what they're wearing, the surroundings they spend their time in, and even the cars they drive. If someone lives in a $500,000 home and drives the latest Mercedes, it's likely she'll be interested in owning the top-of-the-line model of your product as well. In other cases, if someone is looking at the top-of-the-line model and then steps away when you approach her, it's possible she's hesitant about whether she can afford it. Rarely do Columbo's suspects realize they are suspects until they've let their guard down a bit and said something that doesn't match a previous answer. They often find themselves uncomfortable in having to explain the difference in the two answers. They try to give credence to their errors and still keep their innocent attitudes. Someone may tell you he invested $40,000 in his last series of widgets. You would then assume he'd be comfortable investing in that price range again. If, when you get to your presentation, your bottom line is that same amount, and he says he can't afford it, something was missing in the information you were provided. Don't call the client out on the detail, as important as it is. Just ask more questions. "Mike, I thought you told me you invested this much the last time. Was I wrong in my understanding that it was an acceptable amount?" This gives Mike an opportunity to explain further without you coming out and saying, "Hey, you gave me bad information." If a potential client initially says she has to have a car that seats 6, then, due to the higher investment, backs off to wanting a model that only seats 5, she's potentially embarrassing herself with that discrepancy and may be uncomfortable if you bring it up. Relieve tension your questions may cause. One of Columbo's most famous tactics is to change the subject. For example, he asks about a plant that's like one his wife has, or acts as though he's finished and begins to leave. This tactic momentarily gets the suspect thinking about something else or answering by reflex. Then he asks another question while the suspect is in the reflex mode and tries to get him to hang himself. Another of Columbo's most famous tactics is to return, as if he's forgotten something, to ask just one more question, just as the suspect is breathing a sigh of relief and letting her guard down. This usually catches the suspect off guard, and she trips herself up. I love that part. If your potential client has not gone ahead with the purchase, I strongly recommend that you pack up your things and get ready to leave. This usually causes the prospect's guard to go down, simply because she starts thinking about whatever it is she's going to do after you leave. Then, just before you leave, try one more time to make the sale. Good qualifying is one of the basics of selling that you can't overlook or slough off. Don't set yourself up for failure. Work on your style and questions, and then watch your income and your base of happy customers begin to grow. The average salesperson today either lets the consumer totally make the decision as to what he wants, or she tries to steer the person to what that salesperson likes best. Both of these approaches are wrong. You will recognize steering by the use of these phrases, especially prior to qualifying. I know just what you're looking for. This is my favorite. I have the best thing for you. We have the best products. This one looks so good in red. To help you stay focused on what matters most when it comes to qualifying your prospective clients, I've come up with an easy-to-remember acronym. NEADS, spelled N-E-A-D-S. Granted, my spelling is a little creative, but that new spelling will help you think of meeting the needs of your customers. Each of the letters stands for a question you should ask your prospective clients in an effort to discover their needs. The success ratio for your entire company would rise if you could get all the salespeople to say to themselves when they meet a customer, I am concerned about my customer's needs. I will discover my customer's true needs and lead my customers to the right product or service for them. Satisfying needs, N-E-A-D-S, helps you accomplish more in your business. An old sales training lesson goes like this. What's everyone's favorite radio station? The answer is always WIIFM. The call letters in this case stand for What's in it for me? People have a WIIFM mentality, whether they admit it to themselves or not. Human beings are selfish creatures whose natural propensity is to make themselves as comfortable as possible. Be painfully honest. When was the last time you did something for someone else with absolutely no expectations of getting anything in return? Now, before you tell me what a self-sacrificing person you really are, think about that answer for a second. I'm asking you to remember a time when you did something for someone else without expecting anything in return for what you did. No thank you, no undying loyalties, no promises that the object of your benefactions would someday return the favor. Nothing. Zip. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Niente. Goose egg. If you're like most people, myself included, you'll have difficulty thinking of such a time. Most people are motivated to do for others only if they themselves expect to receive compensation that they value in return. The compensation may not always be monetary, but people always want something, anything, even a crust of bread in exchange for their efforts. Even if the sought rewards are intangible and emotional, hugs, kisses, pats on the head, or a warm smile, a reward is a reward is a reward. And that's the same philosophy your customer holds every time you contact her. She sees you as someone who can eliminate a discomfort from her life. To her, you're someone who can give more than he receives, which is why she expects you to provide customer service. You contact your customer for one reason, to serve her needs, whether you do it by providing information, a service, or a product. Now I'm going to go over what each letter in NEADS means. The N in NEADS stands for now, as in, what does the customer have now? Why should you ask this? Because average consumers don't make drastic changes in their buying habits. If you know what your prospect has now, you have a good idea of the type of person he is, and you have a good idea of what he will want to have in the future. E is for enjoy. You need to know what your customer enjoys about what he has now. What was his major motivation for getting involved with his existing product or service? To discover what your customer enjoys, you need to structure your questions so you can discover the customer's past. There's a good chance that what he enjoyed about the product or service in the past, or what he enjoys about what he already has, is exactly what he will want again. That's usually true, unless you can demonstrate a benefit in your product or service that is even better than the one he enjoyed when he purchased his present product or service. The A in NEADS stands for alter, as in, What would the customer like to alter or improve about what he has now? Because it is constant, change is a potent force in business. In some ways, everyone is looking for change. More benefit, more satisfaction, more comfort. Your customer's normal urge to improve his present condition is why you want to develop questions to find out what he would like to change. What would he like to be different? When you know your customer's answer to that question, you can structure your presentations to show him how your company can provide the changes he wants in his present product or service. The D in needs stands for decision. Specifically, you need to know who will be making the final decision on the sale. Many times, salespeople meet a customer who is looking for a car, a home entertainment system, maybe some furniture, and they meet only that one person. Is it wise for the salesperson to assume that the person she's met will be the decision maker? No. Never assume anything about your customers. The customer may be scouting or researching, planning to bring a spouse or parent in later, when it's time to make the final decision. So, you need to ask qualifying questions to discover whether the person you're talking with is the decision maker. Here are some examples. Will you be the only person driving the car? Who, other than yourself, will be involved in making the final decision? Is there anyone else you usually consult with when making decisions of this type? Many times, the salesperson who hasn't properly qualified the prospect will go too far in the presentation before finding out that the real decision maker isn't present. You do nothing more than practice your presentation when you present to non-decision makers. You need to be just as enthusiastic to everyone you meet. Even though the person is not the decision maker, he can be an influencer or a champion of your cause. As a salesperson, you're in the business of creating solutions, and coincidentally, that's exactly what the S in needs stands for. You are in the solution business. You find out what your prospects need, and then you come up with a solution. In most cases, the solution is that your customer owns the benefits of your products or services. When you give a presentation to a prospect, you need to be sensitive enough to recognize the proper demeanor to have with each client. This part of your presentation is kind of like what stage actors and actresses do. They play off the attitude and enthusiasm of the audience. If you're too energetic for your audience and speak at too fast a rate, they'll be turned off. Then again, if you're too mild-mannered for them and speak too slowly, you may lose them as well. The ideal approach is to pay attention to the rate and pitch of your prospect's speech and then closely match it. When this happens, on some subconscious level, your prospect gets the message that you're like he is. Plus, he'll understand you better. Be careful if the other person has an accent different from yours. If you adopt his accent, he'll think you're mocking him or that you're insincere. Also, if his pacing is slow, you can speak at a level slightly above his. Speak as though your prospect already owns what it is you're selling. Don't say, "If you join our neighborhood safety awareness group." Instead, say, "When we meet, you'll enjoy the value of participating in our neighborhood safety awareness group." Giving your prospect the ownership of your idea, product, or service helps to move him closer to making a decision. This is called assumptive selling. Assumptive selling is not the same as suggestive selling, when you order nothing more than a chocolate shake but your friendly McDonald's server oh so sweetly asks if she can get you an apple turnover today anyway. With suggestive selling, you're being offered something you haven't yet asked for or about. Assumptive selling is operating as if you have made the decision to own a product or service you have expressed an interest in. You don't necessarily need to learn to speak Spanish, French, or Russian to conduct business, though in our global marketplace it wouldn't hurt you to do so. Here are just a few examples of the kinds of messages your body language communicates to those around you. Leaning forward. If you lean forward when you're talking to someone, you're showing that you're interested and paying attention. When you recognize that positive sign in other people, you should keep moving forward too. In fact, you may be able to pick up the pace of your presentation a bit if your audience is leaning forward. Leaning back or glancing away. When you lean back or glance away from someone who's talking, that means you're losing interest in what he's saying. What do you do if you recognize this body language in your audience? Pause if you're in the middle of a long monologue. summarize the last couple of points, and ask him a question to bring him back. Or, if it's a group presentation and you see several of them displaying this body language, suggest a short break or a question and answer period. Crossed arms. If you cross your arms when you're listening to someone, this indicates that you doubt what the other person is saying. When you receive this sign from your audience, move to a point-proving demonstration, chart, graph, or diagram. Just as important as knowing how to read the language is knowing how to speak it. When you understand positive body language cues, you should practice them as a part of your presentation. They can be as critical as the words you say. If you want to successfully persuade your prospects, you need to be able to give positive, warm, honesty-projecting gestures, such as the following. Sit beside the person you're trying to persuade, instead of opposite him. You're not on an opposing side. You're on your prospect's side. Use a pen or pointer to draw attention at the appropriate times to your visual aids. Some people hesitate when they use a pen or pointer, and that hesitation says that they are uncomfortable. You always want to avoid any suggestion of discomfort during demonstrations. If you wonder about the effectiveness of this technique, watch magicians. They would never be able to keep their magic if they didn't master the ability to draw your attention to or away from what they want. Use open hand gestures and eye contact. Open hand gestures and lots of eye contact say that you have nothing to hide. Don't use the palm out or pushing gesture unless it's when you're trying to eliminate a prospect's negative concern. Even then, push to the side, not toward the prospect. These are the basics of body language, but the whole field of study on body language can help you so much more. When you begin paying attention, you'll find that many other body language cues will become obvious to you. I highly recommend that you research what's available at your local library if body language piques your interest.